Hi guys, Alicia with Working Dog Radio, Torchlight Canine, and Oil Capital Canine Fund. Thank you guys for tuning in to another awesome episode. Please check us out on YouTube. It's a new format for us. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. We're going to start doing some training videos and some other cool stuff on there. So we would really appreciate your follow on there. We'd like to take a second to thank our amazing sponsors. Without them, none of this would be possible. So guys, please check out KINETIC Dog Food, 513-615-6904. They are amazing. American Aluminum Accessories. They make all things canine insert. They've got some new heat alarms. Please check them out. Give them a call at 800-277-0869. Horizon Structures. Everything mild to wild in a dog kennel. They have it. They will drop it off at your door. Give them a call at 888-447-4337. If you guys haven't checked out Highland Canine Training yet, what are you waiting for? Jason and Aaron are amazing. They've got all kinds of courses, classes, and schools going on. Please check out Highland Canine Training at Tactical Police, the letter K, the number 9, training.com. Ray Allen Manufacturing, right there in Colorado. Everything is sewn there. They are amazing. They do so many collaborations with so many of the actual working canine guys in our industry, including me. Give them a shout. Check them out at rayallen.com and use the discount code WDR10RAY for 10%, all things Ray Allen. DOGTRA.com. If you have an e-collar, if you use an e-collar, if you have a working dog or a pet dog, check out DOGTRA. They've got all of the products that you need. You can go to DOGTRA.com and use discount code WDR10 for 10% off a single item over $200. Enjoy the episode. We'll be back. Thanks.
Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. I am Ted Summers from Tulsa, Oklahoma, as always, or most of the time anyway. With me, as always, from Canton, Ohio, is Eric Stamber. Eric, what's going on?
Just cruising along, man. We got pet dog stuff going on. I don't have any seminars the rest of this year. I'll be out in California teaching in January. But most importantly, the book came out.
Yeah.
Book came out the very end of October. It's doing very well.
I saw you were at the other day, 400 and...
Yeah, I am at
400 and something.
Just for this month, 515 copies sold.
Nice.
So I'm pretty excited about that.
Hell yeah.
The first 3 days it came out in October, it sold 384 copies.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I'm like 900 copies. I'm super excited, getting good reviews. A lot of people like it. It's a real easy read. It's a handbook. It's real small. It's definitely designed for you to highlight some stuff, go back, easily find things, work on a bunch of different facets of your work relationship or your pet relationship with your dog. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. What's going on in Tulsa?
Just started my last handler school of the year. Only have a couple dogs, which is nice. So pretty much every one of my handler schools this year has been over 15, around 15. I think I had one that was 18. A lot of handlers, a lot of dogs. This one's very small. We got kind of messed up from the weather at the very beginning of the year on some shipping stuff. So it kind of pushed everything back for the rest of the year. So I consolidated one class into two to kind of make up the ground. And then this last class I knew was going to kind of be, a little small, which is nice. I think next year from here on out, I'm just not going to schedule classes in November, December, and I'll do like a mid-January, February class every year just to kind of start it off. I did one this year, January 1st through the 31st. It was my first class of the year. It was huge. And it was cold as shit. Terrible. It was so super nice dogs, great dogs, good handlers, but man, running odor at 8 degrees is not fun. Standing outside all day at 8 degrees has sucked. I'm not looking forward to that, but I got some more dogs coming in. I don't have any more seminars. I just did a decoy seminar for Oklahoma City PD. And then I did an immigration seminar. It was hosted by Altus PD. And then we had some other agencies there as well. We had some guys from Altus Air Force Base there, some of the Air Force handlers. So we ran through some like mini scenarios where with non-canine guys. So it's pretty cool. But outside of that, I'm just doing this one class for the rest of the year and pet stuff. And yeah.
Are you supposed to go like Bosnia or some shit pretty soon?
Bulgaria. I'm going to go to Bulgaria in like March-ish, it sounds like. Shit.
I thought it was earlier than that.
Nah, we were going to go, but there was a hiccup, and we had some other stuff come up on that side of it from the business, like some good things. So we pushed my portion of it back. Yeah, Alicia's heading that up, or both heading it up. She's doing a lot of the legwork on it. But should be interesting for people wanting green and green plus dogs shortly. So we'll see. Yeah.
Cool. Like to hear it.
So as you can see, or if you probably can't see if you're listening to us on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, it's just me and Eric today. So we're going to kind of circle back to some of the stuff. I think anecdotally we've talked about these three things either in context of other interviews, but I don't think we've ever done like this version of these topics. I don't recall anyway. And if we have, it's probably time to do a new one anyway. So
yeah, I think we have. This is just another training episode. We're finding out that you guys like the training episodes. Our next one that you'll hear after this, we will have a guest on. But this time it's just Ted and I talking. These tend to be the little bit higher rated ones, or as far as downloads go and listening and things like that. So we like to do it. It's nice because, believe it or not, even though we have this show and, you see us on social media and I'm selling books and we're running businesses, we both absolutely train dogs every single day still. So We're in a bite suit quite a bit. I do have my buddy Travis that comes and does a lot of it for me now. That's not all of it, but he lives an hour and a half from here. So hour and 40 minutes. So it's, you can't come every day. So when I have like a class going on or working with some maintenance dogs, if he can't be here, it's me. So somebody that used to work with me here at the business, he's a handler at his agency now. He can't get away very much. This has kind of made me think about this topic, and then we expanded. We're going to expand on it. So each segment, there's going to be 3 different topics. The first topic is going to be grips, as far as biting work, grips. Second topic after the first break we're going to be talking about targeting. And the third topic we're going to talk about is muzzle work and too much muzzle work and the problems with doing too much muzzle work. So the first section is grips. So anyways, I had a trainer that I know tell my buddy wanted to work on his grips with his dog. And the trainer said, grips ain't shit. Nobody cares about grips. Grips is overrated. It's bullshit. I had 7 street bites when I was on the street. And you know how many people asked about my grips? None of them. You're just a fucking idiot. Period. You're a moron. If your trainer tells you that grips and the dog are not important, they just don't know what they're talking about. Plain and simple. It is widely accepted that a good, full, calm grip on a dog is a better place for the dog to be. And we're going to talk about why that is. We're going to talk about how to get there. And things like that. We have brought the grip stuff up. I have noticed and over the years, maybe it's because I block people and I don't see them, but the weapon hand targeting morons seem to be kind of going by the wayside. And the bite. So they bite, let go, bite, let go, bite, let go. All those idiots seem to have gone. You can't sustain anything because it's bullshit. You don't know what you're talking about. There's still some people out there that romanticize their dog and think that the dog can tell the difference between a gun and a cell phone, when human beings with reason and logic fuck that up all the time. So we're going to talk, and Ted is, and Jason Davis, if you're listening, yes, we're saying grips. We're not just talking about bite.
I love Jason.
But yeah.
Dogs don't have thumbs. Dogs don't have thumbs.
Right. Yeah, right.
Jason is screaming into his cell phone.
Yes.
I'm guarantee you he's in his truck right now screaming at the dashboard. Dogs don't have thumbs.
It's just biting. So we both work on it a lot. Ted and I work on it a lot. And We're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about mentally where I think it helps the dog. Also, the admins like it better. But anyways, where do you start with the grip building? What are you looking for when you get it? Say, we'll just say you got a brand new dog in.
So there is a genetic component. And there's a misnomer that like shepherds, pull. Some of that comes from IPO or IG, whatever it's called now. Where, some of the judges like to see that. And I have seen and have sold. And in fact, when I was in Oklahoma City last week, they had a couple of shepherds on their department that were, pushing drivers, and they were crushing them. So there is a genetic component. I initially kind of like to see how they possess something, in terms of like how far back they put it in their mouth. So there is a genetic component like on its face, and you kind of see that a lot in puppies, like really young puppies. You'll see guys like, you'll see the little Malinois and their, little ears are down, and they're like, they have the little paws up and they're gripping, and then they're just like trying to possess this thing 100%. There is also a training component as well. So selection side, we like to try and select dogs that are already kind of naturally full as it is, or naturally kind of drive. If they're really green, if they don't have a ton of experience, and they kind of like sit out in no man's land where they kind of push pull, but they'll do something like I'll surge, where they push to bite to maintain that firm, full and calm grip. Then that's where we kind of start. And then, when we start talking about this, Jason, firm, full and calm, bite. Anyway, when we start talking about what these, like the matrix are, it's those three things. So full needs to go all the way to the back of the mouth. Firm needs to bite hard. If they're not biting hard, then it kind of defeats the point, right? They're just kind of hanging on. And calm doesn't necessarily mean what we like. I think this probably needs to be another term, but I've just been saying that forever. I actually heard it from Bradshaw first. That kind of, conceptualize the whole process of the three things that we look for. And calm just means like once they're where they're at, that's where they stay. They don't move up and down. They don't transfer. They don't do anything weird. So calm just means that they stay. Now you'll have some dogs that surge and just grip over and over again. And then you'll have some dogs that kind of will counter as they grip, which is where they do the head shake. It's super hard to extinguish. I've heard Rigney talk about how to do it, and it is possible, but it requires a very skilled decoy and very, very, very good timing, and a lot of experience. And a lot of police officers and decoys that are decoying these patrol dogs don't have that. They naturally kind of want to counter. So when we start talking about the genetic component, you see some dogs like the NVBK dogs. If you're able to get a hold of one of those dogs that has an NVBK background, they're kind of new. And I know everybody loves KMPV dogs. I do too. The NVBK dogs, if you know anything about that sport, the grip is judged. So like in PSA, we judge grips are worth 5 points, right? It's, they're not, it's not a ton of points. I mean, it's a lot, but it's not like earth shattering. If you get a 3-point grip, no big deal. In NVBK, it's a 25-point exercise. The grips are worth 25 points. And if the dogs don't have 25-point grips, nobody wants them, at least to compete with. So you get these dogs from Belgium that just have these crazy, deep, gnarly, genetic, hard, full grips, and it sucks to work them. So when we're testing, is what we're looking for, just kind of initially, like how do they bite? How do they take it? Right. And I prefer not to do it on a hard sleeve, just because, it's like square peg, square hole, or round peg, round hole, or triangle peg, triangle hole, whatever. The wedge is kind of the shape of their mouth. So I'll either, if I'm going to use a hard, like one of the trial sleeves that everybody's familiar with, if I use a hard sleeve, I'll use a barrel sleeve that's round. So round peg, triangle hole, or I'll use a bite suit, or I'll just go ahead and go to that new Decoy Armor Pro stuff, or a super thin gauntlet over. If it's kind of a mature dog that has some experience, I'll just go ahead and test it right then. And if you're going to bite me, you're going to bite me full, and you're going to bite me correctly right now. I have a friend at a local department here that tests dogs, and that's one of the things they test. Like I'm from the onset, if the dog doesn't grip correctly on super thin equipment as a green dog, they won't buy him. So there's multiple reasons for why we do that. And it does matter. I don't know if you want to fill in some of what I missed, if I missed anything.
Well, when we talk about the selection part, my thing is, if you tell me the dog is green, like never really has done anything but a wedge, okay, he better be deep, full, and calm on the wedge. If he is on a sleeve, he better be deep, full, and calm on the sleeve. I will pass on bad gripping behavior on a green dog if they're not at the level you told me they were at. Same thing with me. If you buy a green dog, when I was selling dogs, if you bought a green dog from me, I would tell you he's been on the bite suit. Right, he's green, hasn't been, really put a lot of pressure, but he's been on the bite suit. So when the decoy feeds him, say, a tricep, I would expect that dog to be nice and deep on that elbow or that tricep, and not taught to push and drive in. Some of them naturally do it. Some of them got to be taught that way, but they should be good at what you say they've started with, or he's only ever been on a sleeve once. Okay, I'll give you that. I'd like to see it a little more natural. So let's say you get a dog in a shepherd and he's got nice full grips, but he's a puller. Some dogs, pulling is nerves. You're just trying to get away. I think they're in like competing motivators where they don't want to let go, but they need to get away from you a little bit. As the decoy, I find that those dogs are a little immature, or they can be stressed, especially if they're putting their feet up on you and pushing and pulling at the same time.
Yeah, it can be stressed. The other thing that I've seen is not very good foundation. So they'll try and create their own opposition of movement by yanking you around, right? They want prey movement, right? Because we're not beating the brakes off of them right now. We're not talking about drive channeling at the moment. So they'll put their feet up on you and push with their feet. Like if you're watching me on YouTube, you can see my hands up and you know what I'm talking about. If you're a decoy, they put your hands on your thigh or right near your crotch or on your hip and push, right? And they're pushing and pulling at the same time to try and create movement and opposition reflex. That typically comes from a few things. It could be poor genetics. It can be, and most of the time what I see is it's bad foundation. They've been taught to bite by somebody that was either scared of them or didn't know what they were doing. And they marked all the wrong behaviors and inadvertently allowing the dog to muscle you around. I mean, they end up getting what they want. And so that can be a difficult thing to break, especially if you've got a reward history of, granted the dog's, 14, 16, 18 months old, but he's had his entire life has been allowed to do it. And it can be difficult to extinguish. But yeah, definitely nerves or poor foundation is what I see. And if it's nerves, you'll see it in other testing. Typically, and I've said this line before, and I know I've said this before multiple times on the show, and I'll say it again. If I see a dog that does that out of nervousness, or typically we'll test environmental source for bites, but if I have a dog that is nervy, like environmentally out of drive, right? So I take them to a building that they've never been in before. It's dark. It's got holes in the floor and shit. It's sketchy, right? It's a place where they're probably going to deploy at some point or something like it and end up biting somebody. So the building is unknown. It's dark. They don't have any light. And if they show me some sort of aversion to just walking around in that building, for the most part, I can almost guarantee they're going to have a problem with decoy pressure too. And it can be feet, it can be tight spaces, it can be lack of, there's any number of things, but I can almost guarantee you that they will always have a problem with decoy pressure as well.
So if you get a new dog in, and he's been introduced to some bite work, and maybe he's got a decent grip and he pulls a little bit, but it's not out of nerves. Maybe it is a foundation issue. He just doesn't know how to drive and push through it. What's your steps for working on that?
I put them on a white table. So when we start teaching gripping and targeting, or biting and targeting, we want to limit access or limit mobility. So I put them on a bite table with a hard line, and I will use another line, not a pinch collar, but I'll use a dominant dog collar just to provide, or even a flat collar. It doesn't even have to be anything, to provide forward pressure. So the dog is kind of stuck in space, and then you're able as a decoy to very, very precisely isolate that pressure that you want, that forward push. You're able to mark that very, very precisely. So if you know anything about marker training, with a clicker, it's the same thing, right? I'm able to mark that very precisely. The one thing that I have done, and I wish I would not have sold this, I actually at one point had a dog trotter that wasn't motorized. It was one of the slap mill things, right? And it had a clutch on it that would allow, like if you pushed, like if the dog was pushing forward, it wouldn't move. But the minute they pushed backwards to try and pull, the little mat would roll and they would lose their footing immediately. So it was almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like as soon as they started to pull, they lost all their footing. They lost all their forward pressure. They lost everything, right? They're literally just hanging on for dear life. And they stand up and grip and push forward real hard, the clutch engages and they get all that traction back. And it was a super powerful thing. So I used it for like a year, almost 2 years. And I was like, I don't need this thing. I can do it without it. And I can. It's a lot harder, but that made it super easy. So if you have one of those or access to one of those and you have the one with the clutch on it, those things are super nice. But I will kind of go back to not necessarily foundation, but this is assuming we don't have any targeting issues. I'll go all the way back to super easy stuff. And we mark that over and over and over again in multiple sessions. The tip sessions are pretty short. 10-ish minutes total, right? I want to maintain intensity on that. I don't want the dog to gas out on us. In the back of my mind, I'm always worried about duration and maintaining intensity over duration, right? Which is something that doesn't come with, it comes with age and with multiple amounts. So why we talk about old man strength, unless you're fucking Mike Tyson, I guess. But when I kind of just say, look, I need this to be hard, firm, full, all these things. And I can't expect an 18-month-old green dog that doesn't know how to do it to be able to bite like a 4-year-old patrol dog that's able to crush decoys for minutes at a time. So I start out with, where they're biting. They give me 2 or 3 good hard pushes, and then I'll break them off right then. I don't work on outs. I don't work on anything except that forward hard bite. And then I use the breaker bar and I pop them off myself right then. And then and at this point also, if you go back and listen to the episode where we just did with Bradshaw from Blue Line, we start doing the whole drive capping thing right then. So we down the dog in the box, give the dog the bite command, let him fire up. That initiates the action. Decoy then moves, blah, 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 that whole process. But I start in the table, then I move to a bungee. Once I have reliable targeting and once I have a reliable amount of like forward pushing that I can safely and consistently and reliably work that over time. And usually we're able to fix it pretty quick after that.
Yeah, I'm going to say I start all of them on the bite table. I think being up off the ground does build some confidence in the dog. There's a lot going on. But the one difference with me than a lot of people is it's not that I don't like, I prefer the bite table that has a back to it. I don't like the bite tables that are open in the back, that just have the 2 side walls. I prefer the back wall and the 2 side walls to have wood or whatever it is it's made of, so that the dog cannot look backwards, cannot go backwards, he cannot back up. Forward momentum, forward engaging and working on the problem that is presented in front of him, like a quote unquote Skinner box kind of. There's nothing else for him to look at. There's nothing else to him to pay attention to. There's no escape. It's forward, and then that forward momentum and that forward aggression solves his problems of maybe a little pressure over his head, or solves problem of me covering his eyes and letting him drive through and building that up. I'm going to talk real quick about the mental side of why I believe the gripping behavior is so is so important. And this basically is seen at every single one of my seminars that I teach. The thing about my seminar right now, E-Collar Without Conflict, is E-Collar is only 2/3 of it. The other third is just fixing conflict between the handler and the decoy and the dog and the handler usually, and the conflict between the two of them that causes outing issues, biting issues, all kinds of things like that. Conflict between decoys and dogs, and the way dogs try to solve that problem. When you teach a dog a firm, calm, deep grip where they just pressure hard, they learn to, it's good confidence building. They're driving through and they're getting noise out of the decoy, and they're understanding that they're the baddest motherfucker there, and they're taking it to them, and they're pushing and pushing. The dog is in a much happier state. He feels mentally better. Every single time that you see a dog that's in stress during bite work, they're gripping halfway or barely holding on. The dogs that get into conflict or stress that have deep, full grips, they're not just going to stay in a deep, full grip. So if the dog is in that deep, full, crushing grip, they're confident. Their stress level isn't there. It's as soon as you apply conflict with the handler. So the dog's on the decoy, the handler walks up and anticipating getting ripped off the bite. The dog spins away. We see that all the time. Spins away from the decoy. That's his chance to try to get rid of this dude. So I'm not ready yet. I don't want to, he's playing keep away. Usually right then on the spin, his grip won't degrade as much because he's trying another way to get away from you, which would be moving from you. But when he's not in conflict, he doesn't move. So the other dogs, when they're in conflict, they get vocal, they scream, and their grip always slides. It always comes off. It gets looser. Some dogs, if they've been taught to hold on too high of stem on the e-collar, get down to their front teeth and scream. Ah! And they're barely holding on. When the stem goes off, they regrip and they're deeper because that's what makes them feel better.
Negative reinforcement.
Right. So one of the things that you get to do, a way to remove some of your conflict with your dog, is let them stay in that deep, full grip and work on them in there and encourage it and teach it. You'll find a dog that isn't so prone to getting in conflict with the handler, and they're just mentally in a better place. We see it all the time. A lot of the dogs that hold on and don't out, not a lot of them are holding and never move their mouth during the out process.
Yeah.
They move outward. They spin away. They're trying to figure out some way to get the fuck away from you. What do you think about the back of that, the back of the bite table?
One way in and one way out. Yeah, I prefer one way in and one way out. And I do that. And if you think about it, like from the PSA side, from the sport side, right? If you think about it, the carjacking and the PSA and the PDC and the PSA 1 is essentially like a bite on a bite table. However, if the dog gets sketched out in the car, there's no exit. So there's no one coming to save them. Like, you're literally got to burn the ship to get out of the car. So if you don't want me in the car, stop me from getting in the car. If you don't want me in there, now this is at a trial where we're testing, we're not training. And so when we're decoying those, we're bringing a shit ton of heat. In training on the table, it's one way in and one way out. So one of the ways that I let the dogs graduate off of the table onto a bungee is I'll do it in one session, and I'll do it or not. I mean, once they're ready to go onto a bungee, I'll literally just like reach over and unhook the chain that's on the table and let them push. And as they push, I'll let them push me off the end of the table, and I drag them off the table onto the floor. And then I let them push me across the floor to where the bungee's set up. We hook them up on the bungee and start working the bungee. And so there's one way in and one way out. And that translates really well to dogs that get put into corners and that kind of stuff when they're decoying and off leash, and they learn they can push decoys around. When we started this segment, you mentioned there's somebody, that talked about like, it doesn't matter. And I had this number of street bites and whatever else. And I get into that all the time about like, oh, it doesn't matter. Tell me why this type of biting behavior matters. And it does. The first is it causes less damage. Everyone listening to this is a police officer that handles a dog that bites people. It should be familiar with Robinette versus Barnes, where canine bites are non-lethal. Right. It's been 30 or 40, a long time, like almost as old as I am. That said, because they're not life threatening, because it's not a lethal use of force, they also shouldn't be life altering. So when we start letting dogs pull, we're not there to remove chunks of like skin from people. I don't want to remove body parts. I don't want to fuck up people's lives. I don't remove thumbs. We're going to talk targeting after the break, but we end up causing less damage. It hurts more, so we get more compliance, because those bites, if you've been in a super thin suit, and you've had a dog bite like that, it sucks. It hurts really, really bad. The other thing is it limits the time on bite. There's a lot of new cases that are out that specifically mention the amount of time a dog's been on a grip. And if the dog is not yanking around and not trying to avoid the handler and yanking the suspect around, it's easier for us to get handcuffs on them, or at least feel around if they've got weapons on them, and then either manually remove the dog, verbal, however we're going to out the dog. But I'm not playing tug of war with the dog, right? And I'm not causing excessive damage more than I need to, or more than we need to. The other portion is admins love spending money on canine, right? Everyone that's listening to this, the canine handler, has at some point probably fought with their admins about take home car, take home pay, whatever, right? The canine pay. The other thing that they hate spending money on is equipment. When we pull and we have shitty bites, it tears up our bite suit and it tears up our equipment, right? I see fundraisers all the time for people raising money for bite suits. And then we show up and like the arms are just fucked up. And I'm like, you have an entire rest of the suit like you don't even use, which we'll talk about targeting a little bit. But it tears up the equipment. The other thing is it's bad on their teeth. A tooth. Somebody told me the other day that an average canine replacement is about $300 to $3,500 for a titanium, for a canine insert. And if they're pulling and they're shallow, they're more likely to yank them things out of their head. And nothing admins love more than coming to them and being like, "Yo, this could have been prevented by good decoy work, but I need a new bite suit and I need a $3,000 tooth." And I can guarantee you they are going to be like, "Go play in traffic, homie." So from a number of aspects in terms of police work, it makes sense in terms of not fucking people up more than we have to, decreasing the amount of time on bite, providing more pain compliance, providing longevity for the dog's working life so that they can keep most of their teeth in their head, or at least their natural teeth, and it doesn't tear up our equipment. And it's easier to get people under control. That's why it matters. And then it's documented too. So it's something that we can document down the line. I have a dog locally that had a bite on like a Wednesday and then bit somebody on like a Sunday. Now, the bite that happened on a Wednesday, guy needed like, I don't know, 14 stitches or something. Now, the soft tissue damage looked like he got hit with a bat 4 days later, which is fine. And that dog genetically and through training bites like he's supposed to. Super deep, super calm, super full, bites super hard. A guy on Wednesday that didn't need that much stitches and didn't need that much aftercare. As soon as the dog bit, dude was like, "Okay, I give up," and went to the ground. Like, dog was on the bite for a very, very little amount of time. They actually, I think, verbally outed him. And the guy's like, okay, I'm done. The next one on Sunday looked like they might have to amputate homeboy's arm. And they ended up having to put a tourniquet on him and life flight him. And he was under the influence of something. I think it was meth and/or PCP. At any rate, when they hop over the fence, this dude is gable gripped with his feet on this shed and his feet on a post of this wooden fence, trying to yank his arm out of the dog's mouth. And it looked like he had raked his arm across the table saw. It was gnarly. And the initial question is why? What? Like, there's a 4 or 5 day gap between these two engagements. Why is there such a discrepancy in damage? And I'm like, oh, it's pretty obvious, right? So it makes it easy to explain when we have damage, like when we have some bad damage. It makes it more plausible. You're like, look, the suspect's actions dictated the damage. Like, we didn't train the dog to do this. In fact, we go the opposite direction. And we document that, and we're able to say this dog bites it or grips or whatever in a specific way that is maintained and is documented through the dog's career. And we do it so that we don't tear people up. And if they get torn up, now I have a reasonable explanation as to why. At an HRD, and Eric, you remember this, we had a couple of guys tell us that they had retired a couple of dogs early, and they called it humping. When they would like pull, like, right? And they ended up compressing discs in this dog's back and ended up having to go through early retirement. But these dogs were not very old, like 5 or something, 6, because of all the training, right? Because we're training 16 hours a month minimum, and all the street engagements. And, they ended up compressing discs in this dog's backs and ended up having to retire them early. So that is the way.
So when I get done, we're going to go to a commercial here in a second, but when I get a dog doing really well on my table, then I don't mind him being on a table that's like a round one, because there's some lateral movement you can add into it, or even the back. That eventually will get him better. I'm talking about in the very beginning. So here's a you said something about the PSA carjacking. Once you get a dog that's kind of understanding it, maybe you're working spongy or you're working back tie or a walking back tie like Sean Edwards teaches, where you're using opposition reflex from the handler or from the back tie to get the dog to drive in. One of my favorite exercise then is I use vehicles, right? We'll do a vehicle extract, so to speak, where I don't just for the first day go out and throw them through the closed door window, through the window of a closed door. What I like to do is I will get the dog. I have the door open, driver's side door, decoy sit in the driver's seat, hands on the steering wheel, so it creates little chicken wings. Dog comes in and just bites him in the driver's seat, right? You have to be careful there because sometimes they'll try to pull the decoy out of the car. So we work on a little bit of driving there. And then what I do is I take the dog to the other side and have him go through the passenger side, bite the decoy who's in the driver's seat, and then have the decoy, get a foot out of the car, and then use the back line, the back tie, long line, whatever it is, on the dog, and get him to drive one. Every time he drives, the decoy moves a little bit further. Every time he drives, the decoy moves a little bit further and further and further. And the dog is pushing the decoy out of the car. It builds so much confidence and strength in the bite. And the dog's like, I'm fucking this dude up. And he pushes and pushes. And because the dog, when you get him in the car, pulling in the car doesn't really help them. Like they're inside this front seat of the car. They're stepping in the cup holders, all kinds of problems. So the way to get out of that is forward momentum. Your forward momentum will solve the issue that you have. And it blows up their gripping behavior using that car. And then if the dog is going to let go, maybe he's young or nervous or at all, it's when the transition from inside the car to stepping onto the pavement. So what do I do? Because some dogs will look down. They'll look down and then let go, drop off, jump out of the car, and then re-engage. So we just push, push, push. One big push, boom, and they push the decoy out, and the dog goes out with them. You'll find they will not let go. They'll stay on there and keep driving. So just kind of a neat little thing to try, and then start launching them bitches through windows. So anyway, something to think about, the importance of grip and some ways to work on it.
And then on top of that, a similar one. If you've ever been to an HRD or you've watched any of our Instagrams, you've probably seen a scenario we call handler drum circle, which is basically somebody laying prone and there's a ton of shit going on and you go in and you staple bite the dog on. For young dogs, we do that with the lights on and we make a ton of noise and we have handlers and everybody start encroaching on the dog. And as soon as the dog pushes forward, everything moves back and gets quiet, and we move forward again and everything moves back and gets quiet as they push forward. They learn real quick that they can control their environment by, forward aggression solves problems. I actually learned that from a handler from Europe who handled a dog, a riot control dog, which can you imagine in the United States if we bit people during riots?
Yeah.
Or peaceful protests, whatever. But like, I can't imagine biting somebody during a demonstration or what that would look like. I mean,
There's black and white videos of it.
Yeah, I was about to say we do know. And then there's another one where, like, when we're on the ground, we allow the dog to bite, and as he grips, we go to the ground. I try and push myself up, right? Like my hands, like everyone's taught during DT, you put your hands on the ground, you keep them from pushing themselves up. As I put my hands on the ground to push myself up, if the dog regrips, I just go straight back down onto my face. And they learn real quick. They're like, hey. Usually that happens after a little bit of a fight where we drive channel and I kind of wrap them up, do some doggy jujitsu, squeeze on them a little bit, take their air away. And if they grip really hard, I stop, roll over my stomach and just start to go passive. And then I start to push myself up. They figure out real fast that I won't mess with them and I'll stay on the ground, and they get to keep all the go fasters on the ground if they keep gripping correctly. If not, I start fucking with them again. And then they're like, I don't like that very much. So there was, in fact, Oklahoma City has a video of me doing it a couple weeks ago at the decoy school. I was kind of showing some of the guys how to do it. There was one of their little Dutchies, not little, the dog's not small, but one of the Dutchies was doing it. But yeah, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to talk about targeting. So super important. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, talk about targeting. Don't skip through the commercials.
Hey guys, it's me again, back with some more awesome sponsors. I want to talk a little bit about Ray Allen Canine Manufacturing, who else in our industry allows us to come to them with ideas as handlers, as dog professionals, and say, you know what, I think I would like to make this, or wouldn't this be a good idea? And they will actually sit down with you and talk to you about your designs. I've got a collab with them on a muzzle, on a leash and a collar. They're amazing to work with. Their products are top notch. They're made in America, in Colorado, and we love Matt. So give them a holler. Check him out on socials at Ray Allen, the letter K, the number 9, or visit him online at rayallen.com and use our discount code WDR10 RAY for 10% off. Guys, have you visited DOGTRA lately? If you go to DOGTRA, they have their new online portal, and it's really cool, very user-friendly. You don't have to call them and order them anymore. You can go to mydogtra.com, and they have everything there. You can set up an online profile. They keep your orders. They know what you've used. We use everything, their ball droppers and poppers. We use their e-collars, their 1900S hands-free for our officers, their Q and their 280 for our pet clients. We use all of their products all the time. Eric travels around and does seminars specific to DOGTRA, so you can have him come in and teach a class on how to use it. Check them out, dogtra.com, and follow them on their socials. We love KINETIC dog food. Ted has been using the large format. It makes excellent tracking treats. He uses it for teaching article indication. It's these huge nuggets of food that you can lay down, grab, put in your trainer's pouch. The quality is excellent. We love Debbie and Dave. We have a great relationship with them. They want to know you. They will talk to you about nutrition, about what your dog's needs are. They'll help get you set up. Their food is available everywhere. We've gotten it off of Chewy. You can buy it at stores. Please check them out. KINETICdogfood.com. Your dog needs these nutrients, and they are really specific to our industry's needs. They have a full line of supplements now. Please check them out. We'll have some soon that we can give away. Go check them out. Follow them on their socials at KINETIC Dog Food. They'll really appreciate that.
All right, we're back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. It's just an episode with me and Eric, kind of talking about some stuff. I think we've, like I said at the beginning of this, we kind of talked about a lot of this anecdotally or even directly in some conversations, depending on who we had on as a guest or whatever else. But I don't think we've ever done an episode specifically like this. A lot of the stuff that I'm saying now, I say during my decoy seminars, and I say during my handler schools to my handlers. So a lot of my handlers are probably listening to this. They're like, well, I've already heard this. I'm like, all right, well, then go listen to one of the other archive episodes. You haven't listened to all 200 episodes. So we had a good conversation about gripping, unless you're Jason Davis, and then we're talking about biting. Either way, it's dog putting teeth on people, how it's done correctly and why, and which way to do it. We're going to talk about targeting. So gripping, biting, whatever, has quantified matrix, right? The way that I just separate it is I say that bites are what shit rat, hood rat pit bulls do. They bite people, right? Or untrained dogs that bite people. Gripping is a quantifiable, observed, and maintained behavior over the dog's career, and documented over the dog's career. So that's why I like to separate the difference between grip and biting. And I understand they don't have thumbs, so I know, I get it. That's the reason English is hard to learn. But we have to be able to satisfy that type of biting behavior. You have to bite in certain areas. So this is the entire conversation about targeting. So you want to start with targeting?
There's some folks that will say, I don't teach targeting. I let the dog just bite wherever he can, bite wherever he wants. Those are also the bite, let go, bite, let go, bite, let go people. I personally, just from seeing failures and things like that, I believe if you don't teach targeting as far as very specific places the dog can bite, you have a lot of failures. So letting the dog just come running in willy-nilly and get whatever he takes could end up being an ear. It could end up being their head or face, or it could be nothing. They tend to focus on the hands, the dogs do, biting little movement parts and stuff like that. But where the other thing too we'll talk about targeting is too much sleeve work or too much arm presentation. So the dog has to be taught that the forearm, the tricep, inside of the arm, all the way up to the bicep, in the armpit, the legs from top to bottom, in the front and in the back, and the ass, and even your back at times, like back up by your shoulder blades, are all permissible environments to target. Because what happens is if you don't teach targeting, when the dog is going in and he doesn't see the forearm presentation, it's weird. If you teach a dog to target, that specifically those areas I mentioned, they find a guy hiding and they only see his hip or whatever, they're going to bite him. So it's not letting him just get wherever he wants. But I'm telling you, the dogs that are taught targeting will target when there isn't one. Otherwise, what you get is a term coined by Sean Sagans. I don't know if he took it from Jerry, but Sean Sagans has a term that he uses here called choice paralysis. Choice paralysis is used in psychology and it's used in other things. But choice paralysis is the dog choosing to do nothing. When he can't figure out where to bite because things just haven't been made crystal clear. That's the thing you guys got to understand with dogs. Freedom doesn't give a dog freedom. Like giving him just free rein to bite wherever is not going to give him freedom to bite. Rules, structure, consistency, and teaching exactly where to bite is what gives him freedom to bite. So you have what's called choice paralysis. Same thing with you guys out there that are that don't use suits, that only use sleeves. Now, granted, there are some sleeve-only dogs that are murderers that have got a lot of street bites that do an amazing job with it. Those
they don't give a shit. They'll bite traffic cones and fence posts, and they don't.
Those
care.
Are unicorns. Period.
Yeah, they don't care.
So that when they don't see that forearm presentation, they choose to do nothing, and that's why you have failure after failure. So let's talk about the inside bites, like on the bicep first.
So I guess, this conversation needs to be broken down into, I don't necessarily be broken down, but I mean, I'm so over the whole sport dog versus whatever in reality. Like I've seen so many dogs on the PSA trial field that belong in a patrol car and would have no problem transfer. They could put them in a patrol car right after they got their title and they go to work and they would probably bite somebody with very little hesitation. So, I mean, I'm not even going to go down that road. It's a worthless conversation and it's stupid. The inside bites is basically just like it sounds, right? Like it's inside the arm or outside the arm. And first of all, I guess I need to back up and talk a little bit about, from the law enforcement side, what we deem is acceptable and not acceptable. So if we're kind of operating under the whole premise that canine bites are non-lethal and shouldn't be lethal, and they shouldn't be life-altering, then there's some areas in the body that we shouldn't bite. And it's the same areas that we don't do baton strikes or energy weapons, right? So hands, face, feet, and groin are the areas that are kind of off limit. One, I don't want to decoy those areas. And two, those are areas that can cause life-threatening or life-altering injuries, right? I don't want to remove people's thumbs. I don't want to remove toes. I don't want to bite people in the junk. Now, inevitably, it does happen. And I can talk about how that happens here in a second, but there is a plausible explanation as to why that does happen. Several of my dogs have had head bites, and there is a completely reasonable explanation as to why that happens and why those things end up that way. But for the most part, we talk about 10 targets of opportunity. I don't train handlers to say we bite the first thing we come to. That's not what we say. We bite the first target that's acceptable that the dog has been trained to bite. And it's pretty much arms and legs, right? So from wrist to shoulder, and then basically from just north of your knee down to the ankle section. So those areas, and then I try and stay off of the elbow just because, one, it sucks to decoy, and two, if you're not a real adept at marking that and understanding how to manipulate that suit material, and if you don't have a super thin suit, then the dog will never be satisfied there, and they start fucking migrating around or whatever else. And the other thing I want to talk about too is foundation. This is more on the decoy side. When I'm teaching new decoys, I talk about the karate chop. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see me going like in and out with my hand, right? So I'm basically what a lot of times you'll see decoys doing that are inexperienced or doing it incorrectly, in my view, is they're pivoting at their elbow and they're moving in and out. So then the wrist becomes the fastest moving thing. These are prey animals and they're going to chase the fastest moving thing, whether it's a tennis ball or whether it's a portion of a body. So you end up with dogs that have a bite history of hundreds, if not thousands of reps, super low on a bite suit, like way down here, like where you would wear your watch, which is not where I want them to bite. Now, it is acceptable target, like if that's what they get a hold of. And those dogs will transfer to hands very easily. That comes from proper or improper foundation. One, it comes from, well, I take that back. It comes from improper foundation, one, where you have somebody that back ties the dog so they have a ton of mobility. They can go wherever the hell they want. And then they're fucking winging their hand around. Or you have guys that continue to do what we call engineered misses, or these things where we run past the dog and we make them miss and make them miss and make them miss. And the dogs finally figure it out, right? Like if I shoot something that's moving, where do I shoot? I don't shoot at it. I shoot out in front of it, right? So if a train leaves Chicago at one time and Cincinnati at another time, where do they meet in the middle? Kind of thing, right? So where does the round meet the object that I'm shooting at out in space? So the dogs are able to calculate the same math. And they end up biting super forward and leading on, they end up leading where you're heading. So I get it with young dogs, very young dogs. We do that, but you need to stop at some point. And because if not, they end up being really comfortable, really, really low down, like where you would wear a watch. So that said, they are able to fulfill like a nice, the correct biting behavior there, but I prefer them not to be there because I got to put handcuffs on people and I can't do it if there's a dog mouth in the way. So I like them to be a little further north, like in the meat of the forearm, and not on the elbow, just because those get weird and it's hard for the dog to like satisfy. If you have a dog that's really, really good and really, really adept and bites correctly genetically and has been trained and maintained well, they're not comfortable on elbows because it moves. And in a suit, like if I flex, that material bulges up and you can actually pry their jaws open, and it's not and you can mark really cool behaviors, but you have to be really, really good and lots and lots and lots of experience to maintain that really well. So instead, what I like is a nice target on a forearm between the wrist and the elbow, or on the tricep between the elbow and like the pocket area for KMPV and MVB or PSA dogs, which is kind of like where your armpit is basically. I've got multiple scars like in my armpit where lower canines have like sunk into my pec or into my on both sides, and it sucks, but that's where we want them. As far as legs go, if I'm in and out, and I've raised multiple dogs from puppy to finished patrol dogs, I usually teach them legs first, just because that's inevitably they're going to bite legs at some point, and it's so much easier to teach them upper body than it is to teach them lower body. To go from lower to upper versus upper to lower, and then we don't have this entire history of only biting upper body. Yeah. What do you want to add?
So the bicep on the inside.
Right.
Just above the bicep. I find, and there's a lot, again, I'm traveling all over the country, and you travel with HRD, and we see there's a lot of training groups that don't do it. And it's because the decoys are afraid or they're lazy.
It's sketchy.
Yeah,
if the dogs don't, it's scary. If you don't trust the dog, then
once you get a good dog who's, you've done it proper, it's the best place to decoy a dog. Like there's so much work you can do with the dog there. Also, there's a lot of pressure you can put on a dog inside there, even just spatial pressure with your hands over their head, squeezing in, let them punch and open up, talking about that gripping behavior that we had earlier. It's also, if you're going to get a verbal out on a dog, work a verbal out, that's the hardest one, I find.
Yeah.
Because they're in it.
Yeah.
I'm strong. I'm confident. I'm in this. We're cuddle buddies here. I don't want to fucking back out of this. So if you're there on that inside bite and you're getting verbal outs, you got a clear-headed, very clear-headed dog.
Yeah.
The other
and I will say
thing real quick is quit being pussies and do leg bites.
Yeah.
Leg bites
suck. They hurt. And
they do, but so fucking what?
Yeah.
I don't mind leg bites. Oddly enough, my Demone suit that I had that was given to me, the jacket's fucked. I wear my ALM jacket with it. My ALM jacket's in great condition. The pants have had an unbelievable amount of bites on it. They're good, man. The pants are still good.
And so for law enforcement work, I always tell, just like Waterboy when he's like, laces out, right? So eyes out. And so the dogs have to be taught. And you can always tell a dog has never been taught how to bite legs because they want to bite it like you've got a vertical arm. So they, like you're trying to make it, they come in, perpendicular to it, not parallel. Dogs have to be taught how to turn their head and target down low. So if we've had Jason Davis on the podcast. He's instructed at a couple of decoy seminars at one of the HRU ones and a couple of other ones. Very, very, very good at teaching leg bites. Probably one of the best guys in the country at teaching it, without a doubt. And listening to him teach it, if you ever get a chance, he's in Jacksonville, Florida. Go ask him how to teach. Like, dude, how do I teach dogs leg bites? Because this is not the venue to talk about it. I can talk about it a little bit, but there's something you do like where we do, I call it a J hook, where my leg doesn't move in a straight linear line, right? So I kind of move in a direction that they have to turn their legs out and tilt their head so that they can satisfy the proper biting or gripping behavior. The one thing that I see a lot of guys doing is trying to kick the dog, like they pick their foot up off the ground and try and shove the thing in the dog's mouth, or they bounce, right? So just like the conversation I had about the wrist where we karate chop and it causes the dog to bite super low, when you walk in to present your knee or your leg and you're bouncing like up and down, right? So like if you got Elvis leg going or sewing machine leg, the dog does the same thing. Like they're tracking this target as you're coming in, and it promotes bites up high. And it promotes bites up high. The reason we say eyes out is because when we go to cuff someone, we put them on their face. If the dog's eyes are in, like if they're biting in the front or even the back and their eyes are facing in, then when we go to put them on their face, the dog ends up on his back, or they end up fucking like tearing somebody up. It turns into a shit. You got to roll them onto your side. They got to roll them onto their side and cuff them that way, because the dog it's not the ideal position. I want them eyes out either from the front or the back, and there's a way to do it. And this is not the venue to explain it, but there is a way to do it. And I prefer them low but below the knee, if possible, if I can do it. Now, I understand that when you're running from somebody, from the dog, and your legs are moving, the fastest moving piece of your feet. So the most stable target is either going to be an upper body bite or right below, like on your thigh, which is fine too. I don't care. I mean, you bite them the back of the thigh, like right on the ass, like cool, no problem. When I teach that targeting, if I can, I put them in a box. I used to have a box that was really long. It was basically like a table. The wall was one side and the other side was plywood. So it was like, 15 feet long. And you would you'd stand in the fucking box and do it the same way you would do a bicep or target or whatever, like any upper body bite, the same thing, right? So limit access, limit mobility. Once the leg bites is done, like you get some reliability and you let the dog push you off the table, whatever else, is when I start introducing fend-offs. So I understand the dog is going to go upper body if he gets an opportunity to, but in the event that you send the dog in, whether on lean or offline or on, however, leashed or unleashed, and he's presented with somebody that has something in their hand that's obscuring that target, then they should automatically go to a secondary. So like we started the segment, Eric, saying it lessens the opportunity for the dog for choice paralysis, right? So it's like, all right, I can't get that one, I'm going to get this one instead. That's cool. That's fine too. I would totally accept that. The other thing I've seen dogs do is jump up and grab whatever's in my hand and yank it out of my hand, spit it, and come back and bite the target they want. Also acceptable. I would prefer them to disengage a leg, but it is what it is. So, yeah.
If you think about it, with the eyes out part, when a person is bit by a dog and they're going to fall away from the dog. Nobody's going to just pile on top of it. I mean, sure, it can happen. But they're going to fall away. That's why when they fall away, we want their eyes up. Now, one of the ways I've been doing the last couple of years is we're teaching gripping behavior on the upper body. I teach the legs on a bungee on the floor, and I teach it with the decoy laying on his side with no top. Just
that works too.
unless he's afraid, will do just the pants, right? Laying on his side. And with the bungee, then the handler, so you bungee on a harness or you bungee on the flat collar, you have your 6-foot line on the dog's flat collar as a safety line. You as the handler walk the dog in, right? Sometimes we might tap on the leg with a stick just to get the, target. We're not kicking at him or anything like that because they're going to bite you in the foot. Decoy's on his side. Walk him in, and then place him on the shin or just above the knee. I'm the same way. Knee bites do suck, period. But place him on the shin. Let the bungee activate. Let the bungee do the work. Your job as the handler at that point then is use your 6-foot as a safety line. So if the dog lets go, he doesn't launch 15, 20 feet backwards, 4 feet high onto the wall. So you bring him in, you set him in there with that bungee, and you let go of the bungee, and you let that bungee do the work and hold that dog. So now the dog is already being marked and seeing the picture with his eyes out, technically, because he's biting the top leg as the decoy's laying on his side. He comes straight in and bites, which is sideways when the handler stands up or the decoy stands up. We get him punching, driving in. You push forward on the bungee to take out the slack. Bang! He bites. You let go of the bungee. All on the leg. And you'll be surprised. Dogs never been on legs will stay there and stay there and stay there. Then, usually not that first session, but maybe the first week that we're working on that, I will then go over and lift the decoy up so he stands up. Now, when he stands up, the decoy or the dog's eyes are out. In the proper position, he sees the picture, you mark it, you let him drive. Boom, boom, boom. If the dog is obsessed with the upper body, if he lets go of the leg to try to jump up and bite the decoy in the arm or shirt or whatever, the bungee flies back. So if you're the decoy, keep him extended out on the bungee, right? If he lets go to bite you in the arm, he's gone. The handler catches him with that 6-foot leash. We've had a couple times instances where the dog let go and bit the decoy in the shirt or up here in the shirt without a top on because there was slack in the bungee. Mm-hmm. We did have a dog from Akron, Ohio, pull it was crazy, man, to watch. He did a couple rounds. I had a female decoy here with no suit top on. He pulled her in, backed up, pulled her in, let go, and launched up and bit her in the titty. He fucking set that up.
Checks out.
Right. So you have to have like a backup person holding them and helping them. It's really incumbent on the handler to not fall asleep during the whole thing. So think about that. It's a good way. You stand them up, and I'm telling you, even brand new dogs, you stand that decoy up, and that dog stays engaged on that leg. Bang, bang, bang.
Let's talk about areas that we don't bite. I already mentioned them: hands, face, feet, and groin. In the inevitable event that you have a live engagement that ends up with a hand, face, feet, or groin bite, we have a plausible explanation as to why. And we've documented through, hundreds of hours of training that this dog is biting these areas. So I say this often at decoy camps, and we've made it into a patch, which I need to remake. But I tell decoys, I'm like, don't put your hand anywhere you even put your dick. Right? One, hand bites suck. I've got scars all over my hands from getting bitten hands by dogs, and it sucks. But when we get a hand bite or a head bite, I can say, I'm like, they're like, well, how did he bite him in the hand? I'm like, he stuck it in his mouth. Like, I can't stop people from doing that. Like, and it's a natural reaction, right? Like, we have one of my dogs bit a dude a couple of years ago, and he was running and trying to Heisman the dog down. The dog bit him on the wrist, right above the wrist, and pinned a big dog and a crackhead. And pinned so the wrist was in the mouth and pinned his dude's arm to the back of his thigh. And the whole shit show fell on the ground. I'm like, it counts. Like, it works. I mean, the dog was aiming for the thigh, like right below his butt cheek. And he was trying to push the dog off of him. And the dog was like, nope. And stuck his arm in his mouth. He's like, fine, whatever. Whack. And pushed the whole shit show onto the ground, which is cool. That's fine. But when we have head bites too, typically all of our head bites have been from people laying prone or passive where the dog couldn't see and they commit to human odor, which is a whole other conversation that we're not going to talk about right now. But the dog commits to human odor, and it's like, well, I mean, the one that stands out is a dog that bit this, I call it a shithead burrito, where he had wrapped himself up in something behind the couch, like this old lady's couch. And it wasn't a flat back, so it was kind of angled. So it was a gap between the wall and the, like, you know, human sized gap. So the dog commits on a long line, and he commits to odor, and the dude's wrapped up in a blanket, and the dog bites human odor, and it turns out that it's dude's head, which, whatever, we bit a dude in a sewer drain, and he had wedged himself in the sewer pipe, and he was laying, you can't see me on YouTube, but he looked like he was laying like this, and the dog engaged and bit him like on the forearm and on the ear at the same time. And I'm like, it's dark, you can't see, and I mean, there's not a lot of room for movement, and I mean, it is what it is. Once the dog figured out, and then he kind of regripped and stayed on this dude's arm because he was trying to fight him off, and then it was fine. But we don't teach that, which when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about muzzle fighting and how we still have to deal with targeting at that point too. But typically, I remember talking to Daryl Gahn at one point about a dog that they had that had a couple of head bites, and they learn real quick. They're like, oh, if I do this, the decoy does these things, and they're like, well, fuck it, I'm just going to skip to the end. And then they start targeting, and they're like, nah, we'll just target the head and then whatever else. There are some scenarios like Blair Witch. Unfortunately, if you follow us on social media, Justin Tucker got smoked in the eye or in the face in West Virginia last month during that, because it's one of those deals where targeting is not clear, and it's going into it. I tell everybody, like, this is the sketchiest thing you're going to do, and it's one of those deals where we're asking the dog to commit to human odor or not. So it's a whole other thing. But in general, when we're teaching young dogs and green dogs, like, we have to maintain those, like, don't bite people in the hands, face, feet, or groin. And yeah, so we're going to take a break and go into our last segment about muzzles, or the overuse or underuse of muzzles, and what Eric and I kind of believe. Don't fast forward through the commercials. We'll be right back in just a second.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Please check out our friends Jason and Aaron Perguson at Highland Police Canine. If you guys are interested in going to school, if you've come out of the military, you can use your GI Bill to go through their school. They have a pet training school. They have a police training school. They have online courses that you guys can take, such as their Canine Supervisor course. You guys can really take that as far as you want with them. They are a veritable fountain of knowledge when it comes to canine. They're located in North Carolina. They're always accessible, always available, and we've had such a long relationship with them. I cannot say enough good about them. So please check them out. If you go to Tactical Police Canine Training, go to their online programs, check them out. Use the discount code NARC for 20% off any of their online courses. Guys, that will help you. It'll help you make headway in this industry. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times when we're talking about dog kennels and their construction, like, you don't know where to start. What do I do? What do I add? I need to weatherproof this, waterproof this, pee-proof this. If you guys have checked out Horizon Structures lately, it's unbelievable. They literally have everything that you could possibly need. They can build your kennel with as many holes as you want in it, and they can drive it out to you, set it on your pad, hook it up, and you can move dogs in it immediately, from mild to wild, from one kennel all the way up, from the tiniest of pet runs to the hardest of working dogs. If you can dream it, they can build it. Go ahead and check them out at horizonstructures.com. Go specifically to their working dog area. It's commercial-dog-kennels. Give them a call, 888-447-4337. And of course, check them out on their socials at Horizon Structures, and they will hook you guys up. American aluminum has been such an asset to us. Our officers have their canine inserts. They have organizational lockers for the back of your patrol vehicle. They literally have just now put out an amazing heat system and alarm that integrates with their canine insert. Guys, they do it all. Give them a call. Check them out. It is high quality. It's made here in America. If you go to Easy Rider online, check them out, or give them an email at quotes@AAA-mail.com, or give them a phone call, 800-277-0869, and check them out. We also want to send a huge shout out. He recently passed away. Rest in peace, Brother Dege. Thank you for our music. Thank you for the permission to use it. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you're doing well on the other side. Thank you guys for listening.
All right, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite, talking about biting or gripping, targeting, where we bite and where we don't bite. And now we're going to talk about muzzles, which I think personally is one of the most misunderstood pieces of equipment in apprehension work. Honestly, that's what I believe. And either misunderstood or misused, depending on what's going on. So where do you want to go?
So I'm currently working with a dog that had some street bites and then just had a failure. And I can see in the video that the dog is muzzle punching in the video. He stays in the fight with the bad guy when the handlers had to take him to the ground, is fighting him. But this is a byproduct of doing too much muzzle fighting. His training group did about a full year of muzzle work. And I noticed there was another dog that I personally sold and trained that had some street bites and then started going in and punching the bad guy first, then biting, or just keep punching him. That is a byproduct of doing too much muzzle. Let's make one thing very, very, very clear. Muzzle fighting does not teach biting. Does not teach biting.
When you say it that way, it sounds like common sense because they can't fucking bite. So
it teaches, it's really designed for fighting a guy without a bite suit. It's a way for you to take the equipment off, right? But it does not teach biting. That's a huge mistake that guys make. And if you do, there are people that only ever teach muzzle work and their dogs have piles and piles of failures. Only training a muzzle will not teach your dog to bite the person. It just keeps them punching and punching. And you'll see that the other big mistake that people make when they do muzzle, and I do muzzle, I'll do muzzle work and I'll do muzzle fighting a lot less than I used to. I don't think it's as important as I used to think. We do it too long. The dog will fall out of drive in about 15 seconds because they're not getting the biting satisfaction that they're used to. They fight, and then you find yourself you have a strong dog who comes in, muzzle, 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 and then he walks off. And you have to reach up as the decoy and flank him or get his attention or spin him. Somebody has to spin him around and send him back in to bite you, or bite, quote, but come in and smash you with the muzzles. That's a huge mistake that we make mentally, is we leave them on there too long and we think that's actually building biting because there's no equipment on it. Even worse, there's the same douchebag who said about gripping, because he's a huge pussy, he does muzzle work in a bite suit. Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm okay for if you're it's their first session and they're young and
they don't understand
and they've just bypassed bypassed decoy soccer, which is my step for muzzle fighting, but
it hurts. Go fucking work at Subway, fuckface. Stop wearing bite suits with muzzle fighting, and then stop equating muzzle work with bite work. It's not the fucking same. Also, those of you who are only using your muzzles on your dog for bite work and think that it's going to be just fine if you put it on him to go to the vet and he's not going to try to muzzle punch the vet
can knock the kennel techs over knock the vet techs over.
And you wonder why he's such a dick there. What do you think?
So I use muzzles for building intensity. And kind of teaching that initial, like, I want that initial strike. Once the dog commits, sees a target, so he comes around a corner, he sees dude there, whether, regardless if you're standing, I don't care, it doesn't matter. Standing passive, running towards him, doesn't matter. I don't give a shit what it is. But I want that initial strike to be, that initial commitment to be devastating. I want it to be gnarly. I use it to teach intensity. And I used it to teach intensity with the initial strike. So the things are super, super short. The sessions are super short. Targeting is still of the utmost importance. I personally find muzzle fighting as a decoy one of the hardest things, because marking the behavior, we're marking targeting and we're marking intensity. So opposition reflex is hard. And in this situation, because I don't have a way to mark biting behavior because they're not biting. So there's a group that's about 5 hours from me that they don't do any bite work because they believe that biting anything other than people creates equipment fixation. And I heard this and I'm kind of standing there listening to it. And I said, so how do you guys teach an out? And they looked at me like I had a dick growing out of my forehead. And I'm like, seriously, you have to bite to out. So if you don't bite, how do you teach an out? And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, I'm just asking. I am literally asking. And then on top of that, how do we document, maintain these types of behaviors? So anyway, we use muzzle neutrality for SWAT work and for building clearing, and not everything is about biting. Who we need to have on the show is Josh Kirby. Josh has a thing that he makes that is like the quick release muzzle. That is a way that you can kind of bleed through. In fact, I'll text him and ask him if he wants to come on the show. Josh, if you hear this, I talked to him today. He's doing a seminar with Hervé. So, which I was like, oh, wow. Anyway. So muzzle fighting for me is about building intensity. It is not about fixing failed deployments. It is not about fixing frustration. It's not about anything other than intensity and marking that intensity. And it's one of the things that is really easy it's one of the easiest things to mark in a muzzle versus anything else. We still have to worry about targeting, right? I don't want decoys. Like if you're watching me on YouTube, you see me, I'm putting my hands in front of my face like this because it promotes dogs targeting body. We still want them to bite forearm, bicep, wherever we want them to bite. We still have to present those targets, and those sessions need to be super short. The handler has got to be super squared away, understand the rubber band concept, and understand how that works. And we use it also for drive capping. So we'll allow the dog to strike, load him up, strike, load him up, strike, load him up, strike, plots, recall, and plots 1,000, 2,000 recall, right? So we get some practice with some disengagement. I have used it with dogs that were just assholes when it came to outing, and it gave me that little gap and gave the handler that little gap in time where, the dog is still wanting to engage to give us a behavior that we wanted to start that whole process of outing, and at least start the conversation with the dog rather than just starting to just fucking fry him and back tie and whatever else and fucking belly band and prong and whatever. So I've used it for dogs that don't out when they can't bite, but I can disengage. So practicing a disengagement is just as important because it's when we tell police dogs to out, we don't want them to out and guard. If I tell a police dog to out, he's got to come back to me if he's not near me already. So I don't want them there. So the disengagement portion is super important. If they already understand that, then the likelihood of them outing and recalling quickly is pretty good. But it does not fix. It was a stupid idea 25 years ago. It's a stupid idea now. It does not fix engagements. It just doesn't. 100%.
No, and then what
it does not.
is,
or failed engagements, is what I meant.
So what happens?
And it does not mean that they will bite in an actual scenario. I have he's dead now. We had a blue heeler that was around here that would muzzle fight better than any police dog I ever seen. He would knock you off a fucking chair, 40 something pounds of anger, and just come in at Mach 10. And I mean, he was on you like a hobo on a ham sandwich and was just drilling you. And he would bite you, but not like a police dog would. And best muzzle fighting dog I've ever seen. It was amazing.
So what happens is when the dogs have that failure, and when it's especially whether they admit it or they even actually understand that it's the muzzle fighting that caused it, Their fix is always, well, we're not going to use any equipment. We're going to use hidden sleeves, Dog Armor Pro, some other way. Cool. Yeah, like I understand the concept and I like it. I like hidden sleeves. I like the biting of the low profile stuff. The problem with that is 99.9999% of decoys will present their forearm over and over and over and over. And now we're going back to our targeting problem, where they're not seeing a leg bite. They're not seeing a tricep. They're not seeing a bicep. It's always a forearm presentation. And then now we're going backwards. I still believe the fixing of the failed engagement on that type of situation is biting and targeting in a suit. Throw in some low profile stuff every once in a while, but it can't be the only thing you do. Just like you're teaching the dog to muzzle punch instead of bite, you're then starting to teach the dog to only target a presented forearm. It's a rarity that you can have a decoy with who's wearing it just a hidden sleeve, run, or whatever he's going to do, and not present, not put his arm up. It's almost physically, mentally impossible to do that. I know I do it. So think about that. You gotta get them in the suit. You got to get them back to biting legs. There's a lot of things you got to do, building the confidence, working on the grips, getting back into biting. That's where they get their satisfaction from. The other mistake that we make in muzzle fighting is the decoy gets hit by the dog and he falls to the ground. And then what does he do? He covers up his head.
And puts this just like I was talking about, like this.
And when he covers his head, the dog starts muzzle punching the head. Now you're teaching targeting of the head.
They look like a boxer standing behind their gloves and the dog trying to push through and hit you in the face. They're not trying to hit you in the face, but they're trying to. It's inevitably when it ends up happening. But they're not used to seeing your hands. Like if you're in a bite suit, you're not holding your hand up like this unless you're laying on the ground to catch a dog, and you end up with targeting issues. Mm-hmm. And that's why targeting is super important.
Yeah. So and it's all related there. So if you guys are in your training group and you're doing every week muzzle stuff, you need to take a break. You need to give it a break. I guarantee you're degrading your dog's bite capabilities and frustrating them to the point where they just stop. They'll either pull at the muzzle or they just stop. They fall out of drive so quickly. And I know I did it for a long time, years where we did too long I didn't do too much throughout the year, but I did too long per session. I think when we were doing the amoeba drill at HRD, sometimes we did too much, too long, where it's like boom, boom. So we just change that up where we start doing it and then get the dog out. Let him hit a couple times, get him out. Mess them, maybe send them to the other person and then move them. Because you see them, some dogs will just start running around the room and they're badass street dogs with street bites. They're just
you can always tell the dogs that have used muzzles in that scenario, the amoeba thing Eric's talking about. I can always tell the dogs that have been experienced muzzle fighting with experienced decoys because they come in Mach 10. And that initial strike is devastating. If you've been to the kennel next door to me, and my buddy runs a gym, it's like a personal training gym, but we use part of it. There's a bunch of holes in the drywall from a lot of our dogs doing muzzle fighting and knocking decoys through walls on initial strikes. And we exaggerate a little bit, like we go with them to prevent from hurting the dog. But I mean, I've had some dogs hit me hard. Like I saw stars and it sucked. It's like getting hit with a baseball bat. It's not fun. But that's what I use it for personally. Also, where I'm at in this part of the country in the summertime, it's about 900 degrees. And at our in-service, if I have a bunch of dogs that already have a bunch of street bites, or I know we're going to bite, like I'm not going to get in the suit. Like I was like, put them in a muzzle and we'll build a scenario around something that finishes with a muzzle. Because it's 1,000 degrees and I don't want to be in a bite suit when it's 1,000 degrees. And you can still get good training sessions in and good training in without actually biting, but it does not fix failed engagements. I don't care. That's a hill I'm going to die on. And failed engagements happen from passive bites, from lack of good target training, and from lack of good marking behaviors and good biting behaviors. If the dog doesn't have a foundation of proper gripping or biting behavior and the things that we want, and they have an engagement that doesn't kind of go by the textbook early on in their career, it creates a lot of confusion because the target wasn't presented. They made contact with the target, but it didn't act the exact same way, or they weren't able to get all the way on and it felt different. And the dogs are like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Maybe I'm supposed to be doing something else. Like, it introduces some conflict. And, yeah, so how I introduce it is I let them play soccer, put the muzzle on them. After the whole like food thing, we spend, 3 or 4 days or however long we need to, where putting the muzzle on is not a fight. I don't ever want to be like, I have to fight him to put anything on him. So we let him play soccer out in the yard, and because they'll chase a ball. And if you ever watch a dog play soccer with a muzzle on, you can let it go on for a couple minutes and they'll push that bitch all over the yard. Then what I'll usually do is have my decoy come out and try to have him take the ball from him in a suit. And all of a sudden, and this is a brand new dog that's probably never had a muzzle on, and he sees a decoy in a suit and it's on. And I'll have him drag a super thin long line. And once he sees the decoy, he's like, oh shit. Or they're possessive over their ball. We try to sneak up on them because they get to the point where they're like, doing the Mexican hat dance on the soccer ball, trying to bite at it. And they turn around and the decoy is standing there, and then it's on. And then the decoy gets hit. He goes to the ground. We start rolling. They turn into the soccer ball and they learn strike, push, strike, push, strike, push, strike, push, put him up, pop the muzzle off, and go put him away. And pretty quick, I don't know, 3 or 4 sessions of that. And they're like, oh, that's how this works. And then we fade the equipment out and we never have to do it again. So
Also, keep in mind, guys, that if you have a lot of failures with your dog, there's a good chance your dog's just not about that life. He's just not going to do it. I've told this story. I tell it everywhere. My first dog that I worked on the street was.
Should I tell this story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had 70, at least 70, if not 70 plus failures to engage with a dog. 70. I didn't say 7. I said 70. Probably more than any handler who's ever existed in canine in the history of the United States.
Gina.
Yeah. Gina was not about it.
The only 2 bites she had was your daughter.
Right. She bit my daughter twice. It was awesome. Good bites too. But she failure after failure after, she just wasn't. And granted, we did back in the day, a big portion of that was we only ever did sleeves. The whole entire training class, we did sleeves, a little bit of suit and building search, not much, mostly sleeves. So she was running, looking for that presentation, looking for that. But still, even if we had done all the sleeves, she just wasn't about that. So that's also a big portion of it. So, all right, guys, I hope you liked this episode. I get a little pissed off about some things here and there. We'll talk about it in training. Guys in this industry just say really dumb stuff, really, really dumb stuff. And we got to come on and just, show them you're an idiot. So, anyways, Ted, what's coming up? Where can anybody get a hold of you?
Torchlight Canine, letter K number 9. That's the info, Torchlight Canine on the website, Torchlight Canine on Instagram, Torchlight Canine on the Facebook, Torchlight Pets. If you want to see us do pet stuff, we have a couple of Great Danes now that are just ponies, and one of them is human aggressive, so that's neat. And by neat, not, it's like having a donkey that wants to bite you. Torchlight Pets, HRD Police Canine. Working _dog_radio. Oh, since Trump won, the artwork is relevant again. So we have Make America Bite Again, which non-denominational at the beginning, but now, we might as well just lean into it because it looks like a Malinois with Trump's haircut. You can get it. And then we have the fake news one, which was an Eric thing. Like, your dog doesn't out as fake news. So judging by the culling that's going on in some of the news media, it's probably more relevant now. Mm-hmm. Who knew that 6 or however many years ago we made that artwork that it would come back? So anyway, that's on the website. T-shirts, hoodies, whatever. Tights. I think Alicia had some like yoga pants or something made out of them too. So yeah, where are you?
Just go to Amazon, search my name.
Yeah, exactly.
The cool thing is you put in Eric, ERIC, ST. You won't even get anywhere past the T. My name is the first one to come up. If you type in e-collar now, my book is the first one to come up. So it's an easy find. It's $14.99. If you have that Kindle Pro or whatever, it's free. If you have regular Kindle, I think it's $4. I don't $3. I don't remember what it is there, but go take a look at it. Get it. If we meet up somewhere, I'll sign it for you. I've signed probably 20 of them so far. People are sending them to me, or Travis had some and some other folks, which is crazy that people want my signature. But it's cool. I'm really super excited and humbled by it, and keep it going. I'm trying to retire, so I need to sell like 1 million copies of this book. I have 900 down.
You need to have it translated.
Well, yeah.
And when are you doing the audiobook?
Over the winter. Over the winter, I'm going to do the audiobook. I just got to investigate. Can I veer off? I know I can give inflections and emotion in it, but can I veer off and just cuss and do whatever I want during the book?
How much would it cost to have Samuel L. Jackson or Morgan Freeman do it?
I don't know. Probably way more than I would ever make.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. So the guy who helped me get it published sent a step-by-step guide on how to make it, and it's a lot of work. So I got to get on him and do it this winter. So anyways, go to Amazon, check it out, get my book, E-Collar Without Conflict for Pets and Working Dogs. All right, Ted.
All right.
Glad we could get this one in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.